Well, as we'll hear throughout the show, and our previous guest, Adrian, is not alone in his experience. Many leaders in local sports organizations have grappled with this issue over the years, and that includes our next guest. Sean Tobin is the assistant referee in chief for Hockey Eastern Ontario, and he is in Ottawa right now. Hi, Sean.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. So, in your league, how often do you have to deal with parents or coaches that are, yelling at, harassing young referees?
It's an ongoing problem here, like everywhere else. So it's nightly. I mean, it's something that we deal with certainly on a weekly basis. But we're very fortunate that Hockey Eastern Ontario has been very supportive of our referees in handling those kinds of issues.
Yeah, so give me an example of something that you've had to deal with when it comes to bad behavior towards young referees.
So the worst case I can think of was this happened to me as a kid, and it happened, a couple of years ago as well. Parents following kids out to the referee, following them out to the parking lot, or trying to confront them after a game, and threatening behavior and things like that. I mean, that's probably the scariest stuff we're dealing with, where it carries off beyond the ice and into the dressing room and outside.
Yeah, and you said that happened to you when you were much younger?
Yeah, when I was in my teenage years, I did have it with a parent. Particularly, he was quite upset, but he would show up to different games that I was working, and at one point even came out in the parking lot with a hockey stick and was threatening. I don't know if he actually would have hit me with it, but when you're a teenager, I mean that's quite scary and frightening, right? So it's something that we're grappling with all the time.
Yeah, so you stuck with the refereeing, obviously, but I'm guessing those kinds of incidents, even if it's not that far over the line, which that was, but to be 13, 14 years old and have adults, in your face screaming at you, I assume that leads to some young referees saying, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a problem right across the country with minor hockey referees who quit. I mean, in Hockey Eastern Ontario, we did some statistics on this a couple of years ago. We lose about 1 out of 3 of them after the first year, about 50% after the second year, and 2/3 of them after 3 years. And there's a variety of reasons for this, of course, not just abuse, but abuse is certainly a key part of the issue that we're trying to address.
We're here live with Sean Tobin, the assistant referee in chief for Hockey Eastern Ontario. Our question today on Cross Country Checkup: how do we protect young referees and umpires? Have you seen parents and coaches cross the line? Our number is 1-888-416-8333, or you can go to cbc.ca/aircheck. So, Sean, how do we stop this behavior?
We're trying to implement a number of initiatives to deal with that. Montreal, a couple of years ago, their minor hockey program implemented a green armband initiative, which we have adopted here in Hockey Eastern Ontario, and other hockey groups have adopted across the country. Essentially, officials that are under the age of 18, so basically minors under the law, wear a green armband on their arm, and that signifies to coaches, players, parents that these are youth. That if you're getting upset and yelling and screaming, you're not yelling at a referee, you're yelling at a kid, essentially. And so we implemented that a couple of years ago. It's been really successful. The referees who wear the green armbands, we did a survey, and about over 97% of them thought it was a good idea. It increases their confidence level. I don't think it's the only thing we need to do, but what it did do was raise some awareness with parents, with coaches, that a large portion of our games are covered by these kids. And if we don't have them, our games don't get covered. No ref, no game, essentially. And so in addition to that, we've started putting out Rule of the Week videos, so that we do on YouTube. We put them out on our social media. And the idea is to educate parents and coaches and players, and of course officials, on what the rules of the game are. So we hope that providing that education that will help. As part of the Green Armband Initiative, the other thing, though, that we did in Hockey Eastern Ontario is that we implemented increased supplementary discipline for coaches who cross that line. So, for example, if you're a coach who's exhibiting abusive behavior towards me as a man in his 40s, you may get a 2 or 4 game suspension for that behavior. If you do that to a youth, that suspension doubles. And that's had an impact as well. So, like I said, I think Hockey Eastern Ontario is really trying to take this issue seriously, and has been very supportive of the referees as we're trying to deal with some of these issues.
Give me a sense, Sean, of the parents. Like, who are the parents that you're having to deal with because they have crossed the line in their dealings with referees?
I don't see a lot of the issues with parents in terms of hearings that I would attend. These are typically, we see them in spectator ejections, right? So what we're seeing, though, is more referees in the last number of years are ejecting spectators more than I saw in the 10 or 15 years before that, right? So referees have really had enough of this, and they're more forceful, I think, in addressing spectator issues than we were when we were kids. And of course, I think it's more socially acceptable to deal with that in that way than it was years ago.
I'm just wondering if there's somebody listening to this program who has no connection to the world of youth sports or a young referee or umpire, and wondering, maybe this conversation isn't very relevant to them. Is there anything you've seen in your travels and dealing with this topic that you think kind of the wider audience should keep in mind?
I think it's not just about youth sport. I think it's about respect in general, and health and safety of the psychological health and safety of everybody. And I think sometimes when folks go into an arena, it's sort of acceptable, seen as acceptable to behave that way, and it isn't. And I think that what we're trying to adopt in youth sport is the same thing that we're trying to adopt in society in general. That is treating people with dignity and respect. And I just think we've got a long way to go, but I think we still we're on the right track, I hope.
Sean, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Sean Tobin is the Assistant Referee in Chief for Hockey Eastern Ontario. Stay tuned. In the next hour, our Ask Me Anything is